The galaxy had been a place of peace for many years, but now it was nothing more than a memory. The Galactic Empire, a massive force of unimaginable power, had been spreading its rule across the stars, crushing anyone who dared to resist. Planets fell one by one, their cities reduced to ashes, their populations wiped out, their very existence erased from the universe. There was no escape from the terror the Empire brought. On the edge of this empire, a small forgotten planet called Earth remained, a planet known for its people's resilience and their ability to fight against impossible odds. But even they had their limits. The Galactic Empire had decided that it was time for Earth to fall as well. The Empire had sent its emissaries, demanding that Earth surrender or face the wrath of the entire galaxy. And Earth, desperate and cornered, had sent back a response, one that no one could have expected. But this wasn't just any reply. The Empire's emissaries thought they were invincible. They thought they had crushed all resistance. But Earth was about to show them something different. The message was sent across the galaxy, a simple one that would echo in the minds of every Empire soldier. One sentence, one challenge, one final act of defiance. Humanity's last weapon is ready. A few days later, as the stars twinkled peacefully in the distant reaches of space, the Empire's vast warships prepared to march forward, on their way to crush the last pockets of resistance on Earth. Nothing stood in their way. Nothing, that is, except for the unknown weapon they had been warned about. Captain Elena Carter, an experienced commander of the human fleet, stood on the bridge of the warship, staring out into the cold black void of space. Her hands gripped the railing tightly, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent most of her life preparing for this moment, and yet she still couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something was different about this weapon, and she wasn't sure whether it would be enough. The warship she commanded was humanity's last hope. Its dark metal surface seemed to hum with a strange energy, almost as if it had a life of its own. No one fully understood how the ship was built. It was constructed with technology long forgotten by the galaxy, an ancient power that was beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. Behind Elena, the crew worked tirelessly, preparing for what was to come. But even they seemed unsure of what this weapon could do. Some had even begun to whisper that it wasn't just the ship that was special. It was the power it contained, the ancient technology that had been rediscovered after centuries of searching. A power so vast, so untapped, that it was said to be capable of changing the very balance of the galaxy. Elena didn't have the answers. She only knew one thing. Earth had no other choice but to fight. And this warship was all they had left. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the ship's engines was interrupted by a harsh, mechanical voice. "Captain Carter, we've intercepted a transmission. It's from the Galactic Empire." Elena turned to face her communications officer, a young man named Elias, who was scanning the data screen. His face was pale, and his hands trembled slightly. "What does it say?" she asked, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. Elias hesitated for a moment before speaking. "It's a threat. The Empire demands Earth's surrender. They've given us an ultimatum. Surrender or be destroyed." Elena took a deep breath and walked toward the view screen. A moment later, the image of the Empire's leader, an intimidating figure draped in dark armor, appeared on the screen. His voice echoed across the bridge. "Humanity's time has come to an end. Your pitiful resistance is over. Surrender now, or your planet will be turned to dust. The Empire's power is absolute. There is no escaping it." The crew fell silent. Elena's eyes narrowed as she stared at the image. This wasn't just a threat. It was an announcement. The end was near, or so they thought. "Reply to them," Elena commanded. Her voice was calm but firm. "We're not surrendering. Not now. Not ever." The crew quickly sent a message back, one that carried only a single line. "We have a weapon. The last weapon." The message was brief, but it carried weight, echoing across the galaxy. It was a challenge, a declaration of war. In the heart of the Empire, the leader stared at the message, his expression unreadable. He had never expected a challenge from Earth, but now the response made him pause. A weapon? What weapon could possibly stand against the might of the Empire? He laughed at the thought. He believed there was no weapon, no power, no force that could change the outcome. As his laughter echoed through the chamber, he turned to his fleet commanders, dismissing the message as a foolish bluff. "Prepare to destroy Earth," he ordered coldly. "This will be the last time we hear from them." As the Empire's vast fleet moved forward, prepared to wipe Earth off the map, Alina stood on the bridge of her warship, her gaze unwavering. She didn't know what this weapon could do, but she wasn't about to let humanity fall without a fight. Earth would show them something the galaxy had never seen before. The warship's engines powered up, a deep rumbling vibration shaking the ship as it prepared for battle. The crew readied themselves, their faces filled with determination. No matter what, they would give their all. There was no turning back now. As the warship soared into the black abyss of space, heading straight for the Empire's fleet, Alina couldn't help but wonder, would humanity's ultimate weapon be enough? Would this warship be the force that would end the Empire's reign of terror? The answer, she knew, was about to be revealed. This introduction sets the stage for a tense and exciting battle, with a cliffhanger that leaves the audience wanting more. It introduces key characters, the looming threat of the Empire, and the mystery surrounding humanity's secret weapon, setting up the suspense for the next part of the story. As Earth's warship sped through the void of space, the tension aboard the ship grew. Every officer, every crew member was acutely aware that they were hurtling towards a force far greater than themselves. But even as the reality of the situation set in, there was something different about this warship, a sense of calm determination, as if it was more than just a ship, more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's final stand. Captain Alina Carter stood at the command center, her eyes glued to the vast expanse of stars visible through the viewports. She was preparing herself for the worst. She had trained her entire life for moments like this, but nothing could truly prepare her for the scale of what was coming. "Captain, we're entering the outer edge of the Imperial fleet's range," reported Lieutenant Reyes, her voice calm but with a hint of worry. "They're moving into position, and their weapons are powering up." Alina's gaze hardened. "Understood. Prepare the weapon systems. We may only get one shot at this." The crew moved quickly, their training kicking in. Systems hummed to life, and the ship's weapons began to charge. But there was no sense of certainty in the air, only anticipation. They had no idea if their weapon would be powerful enough, or if the Empire would crush them before they even got the chance to fire. Thousands of miles away, the Empire's fleet, led by Admiral Vork, was preparing for the final destruction of Earth. The massive, menacing warships, bristling with weapons of unimaginable power, moved into formation, their dark hulls casting shadows across the stars. The Imperial fleet was a sight to behold, a force so large that it could obliterate entire planets without breaking a sweat. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The Empire had crushed resistance after resistance, and now Earth would be no different. The message had been sent. The people of Earth had no choice but to surrender or face total annihilation. The Empire's victory was all but assured. But then, that message from Earth had come. The one simple, defiant line. The one that had shaken the Empire to its core. "We have a weapon. The last weapon." Admiral Vork smirked as he recalled the message. "A weapon?" he muttered. "How quaint. Let them come. They will be crushed just like the others." But despite his words, doubt lingered in his mind. Could Earth really possess something powerful enough to change the balance of power in the galaxy? He wasn't sure, but he wasn't willing to take chances. He would annihilate them quickly and decisively. Back aboard Earth's warship, the crew was nearing the edge of the Imperial fleet's formation. The dark silhouettes of the enemy ships loomed in the distance, their weapons ready. Alina stood by the weapons console, her pulse steady but her heart racing. They had no more time for doubts. "All systems are online," Lieutenant Reyes confirmed, her voice steady. "Weapon ready for deployment." Elena nodded. "Fire when ready." The weapon systems hummed to life, and a deep vibration filled the warship as the immense power began to build. The energy gathering inside the ship was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. No one knew for certain what would happen when it was unleashed, but they all knew one thing: there would be no turning back. Elena's finger hovered over the firing button. The moment of truth had arrived. She had no more time for second-guessing. The fate of humanity, of Earth itself, depended on the next move. "Now," she whispered. On the edge of the Imperial fleet, Admiral Vork's eyes narrowed as he observed Earth's warship closing in. He could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the sense of something massive, something dangerous, approaching. The moment he had been waiting for was about to unfold, but he was no longer as confident as he had been just moments before. He signaled to his fleet, "Prepare to fire. Don't let them get any closer." The enemy ships began to charge their weapons, and Elena's crew braced themselves for the impact. The tension was unbearable. In that instant, a burst of energy, blinding and powerful, shot from Earth's warship. It tore through space, cutting through the void like a comet of pure destruction. The blast struck one of the Empire's warships head-on, a flash of light illuminating the entire sector. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The sheer magnitude of the explosion caused shockwaves that rippled through the fabric of space itself. But that was just the beginning. The energy wave spread across the Imperial fleet like a chain reaction, destabilizing the ships one by one. Massive explosions erupted as ship after ship was torn apart. The fleet that had once seemed invincible was now crumbling in front of them. Admiral Vork watched in horror as his ships began to disintegrate before his eyes. He had underestimated humanity, and now the consequences were unfolding in real time. The warship's weapon had worked, and it had worked beyond their wildest expectations. Captain Elena Carter watched the chaos unfold through the bridge's main viewport. A combination of awe and disbelief filled her as the Imperial fleet disintegrated. They had done it. The weapon had done its job. But the battle was far from over. "Damage reports coming in," Lieutenant Reyes said, her voice slightly shaky but resolute. "The blast has taken out a significant portion of the fleet, but more ships are coming from behind. We won't have much time before they regroup." Elena's heart pounded as she processed the information. The first battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Empire would retaliate with even more force, and humanity's weapon was not invincible. They had to be ready for what was coming next. "All hands, prepare for the next phase of battle," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "We've won the first round, but this is just the beginning. Stay sharp, everyone." As the crew worked, preparing for the inevitable counterattack, Elena couldn't help but wonder what would come next. The weapon had been their salvation, but would it be enough to truly defeat the Empire? Only time would tell. But for now, they had won a victory that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The initial victory had left Earth's warship and its crew reeling. No one had expected such a swift and decisive blow to the Empire. The damage to the enemy fleet was significant, but there were still plenty of Imperial warships intact, and they were now regrouping. Captain Elena Carter stood on the bridge of Earth's warship, her mind racing. The shockwaves from the weapon's blast still echoed through her thoughts. It had worked, but now the real test was about to begin. "Admiral Vork won't let this slide," Elena muttered under her breath. Lieutenant Reyes, standing next to her, quickly scanned the battle reports. "More ships are arriving, Captain. The enemy is assembling at the edge of the sector. They're not retreating." Elena knew they wouldn't. The Empire wasn't the type to give up easily, especially not after a humiliating blow. The Imperial fleet had been built for domination, and now that their pride had been shattered, they would strike back with vengeance. "Helm, keep our distance. Don't let them surround us," Elena ordered, her voice calm but firm. She turned to the tactical officer. "What's our weapon status?" "Recharging. The officer responded, "It'll take time to gather enough energy for another shot. We can't fire again just yet." Elena nodded grimly. "Then we'll need to hold out until we can. Prepare all defensive measures. I don't care if it's a last stand. We're not backing down." Admiral Vork sat in the command chair of his flagship, seething. His fleet had been decimated in a single blow. Earth's warship had proven more powerful than he had ever imagined. His pride was bruised, and the galaxy would pay for this insult. "Admiral," one of his officers began nervously, "we have visual contact with the enemy ship. They're holding steady at the edge of the sector. They're not retreating." Vork's eyes narrowed as he stared at the holographic display. Earth's warship was a tiny speck in the vast expanse of space, but it was like a dagger sticking out from a dark sea of stars. The fact that it had caused so much damage in just one strike angered him. The Empire's power had been questioned, and that was something Vork could not tolerate. "Send a message to the fleet. We will crush them," he ordered, his voice cold and menacing. "The galaxy must know that no one defies the Empire and lives." He slammed his fist onto the armrest, sending a tremor through the bridge. "Prepare all ships for combat. We strike immediately." Back aboard the Earth warship, Captain Elena Carter's mind raced. The Imperial fleet was regrouping, and she could feel the tension building. She had no doubt that they would come at them with everything they had. There was no escape. It was do or die. "We need to be ready for their counterattack," Elena said, turning to her officers. "This is a one-time shot for us. If we don't take them down with the next strike, we may not get another chance." The crew members nodded. They had seen the destruction the weapon could cause, but even they understood that such power came at a cost. The energy required to unleash it was immense. They couldn't fire again just yet. "Captain, we've detected a massive movement in the enemy fleet," reported the sensor officer. "They're coming right at us. They're forming up for a full-scale assault." Elena clenched her fists. The next few moments would determine humanity's fate. She took a deep breath, gathering her strength. "Get me a firing solution. We need to make every shot count." The enemy fleet was now in full motion. The Imperial warships formed an impenetrable wall, their weapons charging and their massive forms closing in on Earth's warship. Their enormous size and firepower were enough to crush most fleets with ease, but this time they were facing something far different: humanity's defiance and their willingness to fight to the last. Admiral Vork's face was stone as he watched the screens in front of him. His ships were ready. He would not let this insult go unpunished. "Prepare to fire," he commanded, his voice calm but filled with deadly intent. "This is the moment we erase Earth from the stars." The battle was about to unfold in full force. The tension was unbearable as the Earth warship waited, locked in the gaze of the approaching Empire. Elena stood at the center of the bridge, her fingers hovering over the control panel. The countdown to the next weapon shot had begun. It was only a matter of time before the Empire attacked, but they had one chance, one shot to tip the scales in their favor. Charging the weapon, Lieutenant Reyes said, glancing over her shoulder, "We have less than a minute until we're at full power." Elena nodded. "Make it count." The ship's energy levels surged, the power building. As the seconds ticked away, Elena could feel the weight of every decision she had made. They had no backup plan, no reinforcements. They were on their own. "Ready," Reyes said, her voice steady despite the stakes. "Weapon systems online. We're ready to fire." Elena's breath caught in her throat. This was it. They had one shot to hold the line, to survive. Fire. A beam of light more powerful than anything they had ever seen shot out from Earth's warship, carving through space like a spear of pure destruction. It collided with the closest Imperial warship, and in an instant it was obliterated. The shockwaves spread outward, ripping apart the ships in its path. The Imperial fleet, despite its enormous size, was being torn to shreds once again. But there was more to the story. The war had only just begun. The universe seemed to hold its breath as the two forces prepared for the clash. The enormous Imperial fleet, a symbol of power and oppression, loomed in space like an unstoppable storm. In stark contrast, Earth's warship, though smaller, stood resolute, determined to protect everything it held dear. It was a single ship against an armada, but it carried the weight of humanity's hope. On Earth's warship, Captain Elena Carter was standing at the helm, her eyes locked on the massive screen in front of her. Her thoughts raced as she watched the Imperial ships move in with terrifying precision, every part of her being screened for victory. But she knew that every second counted. There could be no mistakes. Enemy fleet closing fast, Lieutenant Reyes reported. They're targeting us with everything they've got. Elena's jaw tightened. We hold the line, she said with absolute certainty. They will regret ever underestimating us. With a flick of her hand, she activated the ship's defensive systems. Powerful energy shields enveloped the warship, ready to withstand the full force of the Imperial barrage. But she knew that even the best shields couldn't protect them forever. Recharging the weapon, Reyes said again, her voice betraying the tension in the air. We're still at 60% power. We need more time. Time is something we don't have, Elena responded, scanning the approaching fleet. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We'll need to survive long enough to fire again. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vork stood at the heart of the storm, watching the Earth warship like a hawk. The annihilation of his ships had made him more than just angry. It had made him furious. He couldn't allow a human ship to defy the Empire. Not again. Not ever. Prepare all ships for simultaneous attack, Vork ordered coldly. We'll hit them from all sides. No escape. The Empire's warships began to form a ring around Earth's warship, their weapons glowing menacingly. They moved in synchronized harmony, ready to launch a barrage that would decimate anything in its path. Captain, they're closing in, Lieutenant Hargrove reported. They're attempting to surround us. Elena's eyes scanned the battle, her mind working quickly. They were about to be trapped, with nowhere to run. She could feel the tension in the air, and the weight of the decision that would come next. There was no way out, and no turning back. Get ready to fire the main weapon, Elena said, her voice steady despite the chaos. We need to make this shot count. The crew worked quickly, activating the weapon system. Energy crackled through the ship's core, feeding into the massive weapon they had designed. The weapon's pulse shot out through the void, a single strike that could obliterate an entire fleet. Weapon charging at full power, Reyes reported. But as the shields on Earth's warship flickered as blasts continued to hammer against them, it was only a matter of time before they broke. Damage reports coming in, Lieutenant Hargrove said, his face pale as he scanned the data. Our shields are down to 30%. Hull integrity is compromised. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Elena barked. We need to get the hell out of this circle. We can't take much more of this. But the enemy was closing in. Earth's warship was trapped, and it was only a matter of time before the next barrage would finish them off. Back on the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vork saw that his strategy was working. The human ship was weakening. It was only a matter of time before the warship would be nothing but space debris. We've got them now, Vork muttered, his cold eyes gleaming with anticipation. Finish them off. But just as the Empire readied its final strike, something unexpected happened. A powerful surge of energy pulsed from Earth's warship, stronger than before. The crew members watched in disbelief as their weapon recharged faster than they had ever seen it do before. What is happening? Reyes shouted. The weapon's recharging way too quickly. Elena's eyes widened in shock as she realized what was happening. It's not the weapon, she said slowly. It's the ship itself. The ship's core, which had been carefully engineered, was generating massive amounts of energy in an unexpected surge. They were still connected to the power of humanity's hidden potential, a force far greater than any technology the Empire could comprehend. Full charge. Now, Elena shouted, her voice full of determination. The weapon fired once again, only this time it was more powerful than ever before. The energy beam shot through the void like a spear of destruction, and the Imperial fleet began to break apart before the power of humanity's weapon. The tides were shifting, and for the first time, the Empire realized that humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to change the fate of the galaxy itself. The battle raged on in the cold, endless void of space. Earth's warship, once on the brink of destruction, had suddenly turned the tide, its weapon now surging with energy that no one had anticipated. The crew, battered but not beaten, held their breath as they watched the Imperial fleet stagger under the weight of their opponent's newfound power. "Captain, the Empire's flagship is retreating," Lieutenant Hargrove reported, his voice barely containing the disbelief. "It looks like they're pulling back." Alina Carter stood at the helm, her mind working at full speed. The Empire, which had once seemed invincible, was faltering. But this wasn't over yet. A retreat could be part of their strategy. The Empire would never give up without a fight, and she knew they would regroup and come back stronger. "We can't let them regroup," Alina said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "Prepare to pursue. We finish this now." Her orders rang clear through the command deck. The warship's thrusters roared to life as it pushed forward, chasing down the retreating Imperial ships. The energy from the core surged once more, and the ship's weapon was primed for another strike. As the crew scrambled to position the warship for another shot, the communications officer's voice rang out. "Captain, we're picking up a transmission from the Imperial flagship." "Put it on screen," Alina said, eyes narrowing. This wasn't a surrender. She could feel it in her gut. The face of Admiral Vork appeared on the screen, his once confident demeanor now replaced with a cold fury. His eyes locked onto Alina, a silent challenge between them. "This isn't over, human," Vork spat, his voice full of venom. "You've delayed the inevitable. The Empire will not be so easily defeated." "We'll see about that," Alina replied evenly, her gaze unwavering. "You've underestimated us for the last time. The galaxy doesn't belong to you. It belongs to those who fight for it." With those words, the transmission cut out, and the warship continued its pursuit. The chase was on. The Imperial fleet had regrouped, forming a tight defensive perimeter around their flagship. They were running out of options. The Empire had never faced a threat like this before. The humans were fierce, relentless, and now they had a weapon that seemed to rival even the might of the Empire itself. Admiral Vork's flagship, a towering symbol of the Empire's power, was now surrounded by his remaining ships, their shields glowing with the last reserves of energy. Vork's cold, calculating mind was racing. He had to make a decision, one final move that would either break the humans or end the Empire. "All ships, prepare for a full assault," he ordered, his voice commanding. "We take the fight to them. The humans are weak. Now is our chance to crush them once and for all." Back aboard Earth's warship, the crew was tense, every second feeling like an eternity. The warship was almost within striking range of the Empire's flagship, and Alina knew that the next moments would decide the fate of the galaxy. "Captain," Rice said urgently, "the Imperial ships are closing in. They're preparing for a final assault. We need to act now, or we'll be overwhelmed." Alina's heart raced, but her mind was calm. She had a plan, and it was the only way to win this. "Initiate evasive maneuvers," she commanded. "We'll use their overconfidence against them." With the warship's thrusters blasting in every direction, the ship began to weave and dodge through the incoming barrage from the Imperial fleet. Each move was calculated, a dance of death between the two forces. The Imperial ships fired, their weapons lighting up the void, but the human warship was swift and unpredictable, avoiding the brunt of the onslaught. Alina knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Their shields were weakening, and the Empire's final assault was inevitable. "Weapon recharged and ready," Rise reported. "Hold steady," Alina said, eyes focused on the flagship in the distance. "We're not just going to survive. We're going to win." The warship was now within range, and Elena gave the order. Fire. The energy beam erupted from the warship's core, a devastating wave of destruction that tore through the air. The weapon pulsed with all the power humanity had hidden for centuries. The beam cut through the Imperial fleet like a knife through butter, disintegrating ship after ship, the force of the blast too much for even the most advanced technology to withstand. The Imperial flagship, the heart of the Empire's power, took the full brunt of the blast. Its shields were no match for the intensity of the human weapon. The ship shuddered, its massive frame cracking and groaning under the pressure. For a moment, there was silence, complete and utter silence in the void of space. And then, with an ear-splitting explosion, the Imperial flagship shattered into pieces. The galaxy seemed to shake as the remnants of the once mighty fleet scattered into nothingness. Admiral Vork had seen it coming, but that didn't make it any less devastating. His eyes widened in shock as his flagship, the symbol of the Empire's dominance, was reduced to rubble. The remaining ships of the Empire, now leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. It was over. Back on Earth's warship, the crew erupted into cheers. The mission was a success. The terror that had once ruled the galaxy had come to an end, and it was thanks to the courage and determination of a single human warship. Elena stood at the command deck, staring out at the vast emptiness of space. She could hardly believe it. The Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was no more. Humanity had won, but at what cost? "Captain, we did it," Lieutenant Hargrove said, his voice full of awe. "We stopped them." Elena nodded slowly. "Yes, but this is just the beginning. The galaxy is free now, and it's up to us to make sure it stays that way." The warship drifted in the silence of space, its mission complete. The galaxy had been changed forever, and humanity had proven that, no matter the odds, they would never back down. The warship floated silently in the aftermath of the battle, a massive hulk of metal drifting through the void. The once dominant Imperial fleet had been shattered, its forces scattered across the stars. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was no more, but the cost of victory was clear, and the weight of what had been accomplished was heavy on the minds of those who had witnessed the destruction. The crew of the warship, battered but alive, took a moment to process what had just happened. They had faced the full might of the Galactic Empire, a force that had once seemed invincible, and had emerged victorious. But now, in the quiet after the storm, questions lingered. What would come next? What would the galaxy look like now that the terror of the Empire had been erased? Elena stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the distant stars. She had done it. Humanity had done it. But the galaxy was forever changed. She couldn't help but wonder if they were ready for the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. "Captain," Lieutenant Hargrove called, his voice cutting through the silence. "We've received a transmission from the remaining leaders of the galaxy." Elena nodded, her expression unreadable. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, and a group of galactic leaders appeared. They were from different systems, each one representing the diverse races and planets that had been under the Empire's rule. Now they looked at Elena with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "Captain Carter," one of the leaders began, her voice shaky but filled with respect. "On behalf of the galaxy's people, we thank you. You've ended the reign of terror, but now we must ask, what happens next?" Elena felt a weight settle in her chest. The galaxy was free, but freedom came with its own set of challenges. The Empire's destruction had created a power vacuum, and the galaxy's new leaders would have to come together to rebuild. But would they be able to? Or would old rivalries and ambitions tear them apart? "We'll need time," Elena said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her. The Empire was a symbol of fear and control, but it's gone now. We can build something better, something united. But it's going to take effort, trust, and cooperation. And above all, it's going to take time. One of the leaders, a tall figure from a distant star system, nodded gravely. "We understand, Captain. We will work together to restore balance. But your victory has shown us that anything is possible. If humanity can do this, then surely we can too." The screen cut off, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. She knew the galaxy would not be an easy place to navigate in the coming months and years. But it was theirs now, a galaxy freed from tyranny, where the people had the power to shape their own futures. As the warship began its journey back to Earth, the crew reflected on what they had accomplished. The battle was over, but the war for peace was just beginning. Elena knew that humanity's role in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer just survivors. They were leaders. The warship's engines hummed softly as it cut through the stars, heading home. The journey would be long, but the crew was ready. They had proven that even against the most overwhelming odds, humanity could rise to the occasion. They had proven that one ship, one crew, and one will could change the fate of the galaxy. Elena turned to her crew, her voice filled with quiet pride. "We've won, but our work isn't done. We have to help rebuild. We have to help lead. This is just the beginning of a new chapter for all of us." The crew nodded, understanding the magnitude of the task ahead. They had been part of history, but now they were part of something even bigger, a new era for the galaxy. And they would make sure it was one that would never again fall under the shadow of tyranny. The warship continued to sail through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming with a steady rhythm, as the crew looked ahead to a new dawn. The galaxy was free, but the future was uncertain. Would the galaxy stay united, or would the scars of the past begin to tear it apart? Elena Carter knew that the answer lay in their hands, and she would do whatever it took to ensure that the galaxy's newfound freedom would not be squandered. As the warship approached Earth, Elena couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. The Empire was gone. The galaxy had been changed forever, and humanity had proven that it was capable of greatness. But in her heart, she knew that the real challenge was only just beginning. The stars outside the warship's windows shone brightly, as if welcoming them home. The crew had done what no one thought possible. And in the silence of space, humanity stood victorious. The galaxy had been saved, but the road ahead would be long. Still, there was hope, and hope was the greatest weapon of all.